And I'm going to call to order the Hancock County Commissioners Special Meeting for October 18th, 2022.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to our meeting minutes.
Move to approve the minutes of the October 4th regular meeting as presented.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we have our monthly report. I know John isn't here on our ARP.
Gene is on.
Oh, Gene's here. Okay.
Morning, Gene.
Good morning.
Hello, Gene.
Good morning. We sent you the report. Do you have any questions?
I just have a question. The gentleman from Bar Harbor, Steve Cornell, approached me on the weekend, and I guess you're, John is working with them at some capacity. I just didn't, he was sort of cryptic. I didn't know what that meant, and I was just looking for an update on that, if you know.
Commissioner, I honestly don't know because I was under the impression many months ago that Mr. Cornell was all set. So if JD is working with them, I'd have to follow up on that and get back to you if you'd like.
Yeah, not a pressing issue. I just didn't fully understand what he was telling me, so.
Okay, I'll take that and I'll follow up, and either myself or JD will get back to you.
Great.
What are the, I know they're reapplying for the MCA funds. What's the time frame to expect answers on those?
The MCA, Commissioner, I believe the deadline is sometime in November. I'm not sure the exact date. I'd have to check that as well. I know that Tom Plott, I think that's how you pronounce his name, of Swans Island, he's currently completing an application for that as well. So when you asked that, you were asking in reference to Bar Harbor as well?
Mine was more about Surrey and Swans Island. Yeah.
Okay, so I will check that as well.
And I guess my only comment is, and I'd wait for JD to get back and whatnot, is we've had 2 presentations so far on utility districts. And I guess I need to know, I'd like to know a little more from JD on what's that mean? I mean, I understand what they're suggesting, but for us, I guess I'd like to hear something from JD on how should we react, or should we be doing anything with regards to the information we've been given, so.
And are they viable here?
Yeah, right, whatever. So I'd like to keep that utility district thing, Gene, on the front burner here, so we understand what we're supposed to do with what we're hearing, if anything, okay?
Yes, by all means. In a nutshell, and at a very high level, a group of towns get together and form these utility districts and then move forward as one body. But that's at a very high level, so we'll get you some more information on that too.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm gonna move to accept and file October report from Mission Broadband as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
You're welcome, Commissioner.
All right, Millard.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Hello.
Morning.
Any questions on my monthly report?
I'm gonna move to accept and file a UT Director's monthly report as presented and dated September 20th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So, Millard, I know there had been a request for you. Do you know what we're talking about in terms of pay on the animal control officer description?
Yes, in your packet, there should be a job description for the regional animal control officer.
Yeah, the question is, what are we going to pay him?
We do not know yet. That is something the commissioners will have to determine, but I think that is going to be dependent on the applicant and their qualifications. If we can get a certified animal control officer with some experience, naturally their pay scale would be higher than a brand new person looking to get certified. I do think the pay scale has got to be up there enough to encourage responsible, qualified people to apply.
Have you done any research into what anybody else is getting paid around the state?
No, I haven't got that far yet.
Okay.
Well, Millard, I think for the purposes of putting out applications or, soliciting for applications, we should, at a minimum, we should be establishing a range.
Certainly.
And I
Yes.
think you need really to decide what that range is and make that recommendation back to us.
Ballpark, I would think $18 to $22 an hour. But again, this is something the commissioners are going to have to determine themselves based on the qualifications of the applicant. But I think you got to be in that kind of a price range in order to attract a qualified person. Certainly, you got to pay more than McDonald's does.
Quite honestly, I'm not even sure if that's enough, Millard.
Well, yeah.
I'd support something in the range of 20 to 25 an hour.
Okay.
But that would be my suggestion, gentlemen, for.
Well,
I think that's a reasonable ballpark to start with.
Paul, you said?
so I guess the question is, today, you're just asking for approval of a job description, and then my guess is there gonna be some discussion on hourly wage or wages when you come to advertising, is that?
Yep. I think that the job description is step one, and then we will start the advertising process. And the document that you have in front of you, I've already proofread it a couple of times and found a couple of things I'd like to change.
Okay, maybe we should.
All right, why don't you make the changes, right? And make the changes and we'll come back to the next meeting and then also include your recommendation for the hourly wages. And that we'll have as a range on the application. So we won't be tying ourselves to a particular dollar per hour, but I think we can agree that we're.
Yeah, and I think you gotta work with Michael on, making sure. What are those, just quickly, what are the changes that you're talking about in this document?
In the first paragraph, general, where it says Hancock County Commissioners, the apostrophe should be taken out.
Or Hancock County Commission?
No, commission is, it's not possessive. It's
Oh,
just-
that's right, okay,
well-
I see what you're saying, yeah.
And then there are 5 other places throughout the document where before the word animals, we should insert the word domestic.
Okay, so it sounds like you want to motion, Mr. Chair, to continue this, or you just come back whenever? I'm fine either way.
I'm fine with approving it if we're just making minor grammar changes to it.
I'd like to see the job description in that job description format. We have a format in the county for job descriptions. And not that this doesn't follow it, but it. At a minimum, I'd like to see the job description, list the salary range.
Okay.
Paul, what do you suggest on the salary range? We've got 18 to 22 and 20 to 25.
I think it needs to work with Michael on, and get this all back all together, and we'll take action on it. Then,
Isn't this coming out of the UT budget?
oh, yes, that's correct.
Yep.
I just don't know. That's why I'm suggesting. I don't know. I'd have to rely on Millard and
So Millard, how does that work financially now if you have communities who are contributing towards that? And I see Monica.
We will set up an account in the UT budget.
A revenue account?
Well, more like a separate enterprise account where money comes in and money goes out. Basically, this whole project, other than what money the UT is going to have to pay for animal control, the rest of the project should be self-supporting and not involve any county money.
Okay, so it sounds like you need to sit down with the finance office, Millard, and get them on board with what that process is, because I'm looking at Monica and she's got that deer in the headlight look. And,
Haven't received any information.
yeah, so I mean, let's make that part of the process here, you know, get your salary scale, sit down with finance and Mike and bring us back something.
It seems like you're so close. We
Yeah,
can easily,
yeah.
easily at the next meeting,
Just need a quick
get it
pass.
all done, job description, pay scale, and know how the finances are gonna work to just get it all done.
Good.
And I think the job description is good. I mean, I think it all looks like you did a good job with it. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
if we want to tailor it a little bit different format wise, that's fine, but
yeah, I have
whatever.
absolutely no.
It looks good.
And Millard, with regards to what communities are going to join this, are you actively working with a specific group and they just,
Yes, we're up. We have 11 towns so far.
Oh, wow.
that have committed or interested?
I'm going to say there are 8 that have committed and 3 more that have expressed an interest that want to get involved.
Okay.
Wow, that's great.
Sounds good.
The last thing I have, Millard, is that, and the sheriff is here, and he expressed his hesitancy to be the backup for this position and to be the contact person should they not be able to reach this person and whatnot.
No, I don't think it's going to affect the sheriff at all. The calls will come into RCC. RCC will dispatch the animal control officer. If the animal control officer is at Gooseboro dealing with an animal control issue, RCC will call him on his cell phone. And I would think he'd have to have a laptop too to do paperwork and keep stuff up to date. But he will get to one thing as fast as he can. He's going to have to be in a position to prioritize and deal with an aggressive dog over a stray dog, something like that.
And are you the backup for,
I would be the backup.
you would be, okay.
Yep.
That's a lot of responsibility, but I guess if you're willing to accept that.
Well, I am now. All the calls from ICC come to me, and I've been trying to contact either Marie Zwicker or one of the other ladies that was doing it, but right now there's nobody doing it.
Very good. Good luck.
Anything else?
I think it's going to be better than it is now.
Yeah.
I got a call one time. I was in Massachusetts and there was nobody for an animal control officer that could deal with it. So I did, well, first I called the Aurora Fire Department, but they wouldn't do it. So then I called the sheriff's department and they did have somebody take care of the dog. But that's the only time, to my knowledge, the sheriff's department has been involved with a stray animal.
Do you have anything else for us, Millard?
The review and approval of the Allen Snack Bar liquor license.
All right.
Okay, and as I read it, we don't need to hold a public hearing on that, right? That's not like
Right.
a municipality, so. Okay, so we're gonna move to approve the annual renewal of the liquor license for Airline Snack Bar in Township 22 is presented and requested.
Now, I'll second that for discussion, and I just make the inquiry from the sheriff. Any reason, Sheriff, that we should
None that I'm aware of.
So the sheriff has no considerations for this, so I'm fine with it.
It's no changes from their previous license, correct?
Changes now.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, I think that's it, right, Miller?
That is everything I've got. We're watching the weather and this heavy rain predicted to see if we get any road washouts. So it may be a late night tonight out with the barricades.
Yeah, I saw the last one.
Yeah. There are two issues further on that concern me kind of roundabout. I talked to Mike about changing the office, and that's fine with me. The UT office is going to end up being shared by myself and the future animal control officer. But again, we're generally going to be working out of the field and with laptops out of the field, not in the office. And the other one is the Bull Hill Tower. And, it comes out of the UT TIF money. But I think we better bite the bullet and spend money and get it fixed once and for all, rather than we're nickel and diming it to death here.
Well, what is the once and for all fix, Miller?
Well, that's above my pay grade.
I mean, are we
I don't
talking
know.
solar, or are we talking?
We'll talk, Bob's got his report on it. We'll wait
Yeah.
until he-
I think Dennis may have better information, and then Dennis and Rob will have better information on it than I do.
Bob Connery's here, Miller, and I guess he's gonna update us, so we'll.
Yeah, there's an agenda item on it.
Okay.
Yep. That's all I have.
All right, sounds good. I don't know how many dogs and cats you're gonna be able to keep in that little office, but good luck. All right, now on to the airport.
Morning.
Morning, Leroy.
Just got these, basically they're project sheets that Jacob has put together for our 24 grants. I believe they're 24 projects. The first one, the approval of project worksheets for Jacobs Engineering. Repaint the airfield markings and crack sealing, and approval for the airport manager to sign. Now, this one will eventually be different. We've had several conversations with the FAA inspector and the Maine DOT. So we're looking at changing up the painting here a little bit. So, and what we're looking at is actually going to be cheaper than what they've put together for a price. The FAA won't fund any projects for the crosswind runway. So that's solely on us. I contacted the Maine DOT because they're the ones that's supposed to inspect that runway because it's not a part of our 139 operation. They said they, paint it when it needs to be painted. So we're gonna go for, we paint every 2 years. So we're looking at 4 years. We'll look at it again in 4 years and see where we're at. If it's still in pretty good shape, we'll go try to see if we can get 6 years out of it. And then there's a lot of extra paint apparently that's been done here for several years. According to some advisory circulars, and again, the FAA inspector he casually goes, "Why do you have all of this stuff painted? You don't need it. Save some money." So we're looking at that. So the painting project probably will come in, we're hoping, a lot less than what they're saying. So that's the first one.
Okay, but at this point, this is where it is, and this is what you're looking for approval for.
Yeah, right now, this is what we're approval for. And basically that is, the approval is really for the matching funds when they come due.
So I'm gonna move to approve the project worksheet prepared by Jacobs Engineering to repaint airfield markings and crack seal and to authorize the airport manager to sign the proposed project worksheet.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so the next one is easement acquisitions. Don't really have much to say on that. That's just basic worksheet. They're working on, this is a whole process to remove some obstructions, around the airport. So this is the one that's been going on now since like 2018. It's just another step in it.
Okay, and these worksheets,
So,
this is just, these are just.
it's just a rough draft.
Yeah, okay, okay. So
Basically, it's just outlining what's coming and giving a warning on how much it's gonna cost.
I'm gonna move to approve the project worksheet prepared by Jacobs Engineering for reconstruction. Oh, no, excuse me, I jumped ahead here. Acquisitions and to authorize the airport manager to sign the proposed project worksheet.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so the next one is rehabilitation of the Caruso Drive. Basically, it's the section that the FAA will fund, meaning ramp road towards the terminal building and the short-term parking lot. Now, attached to this one is a section of ramp area that was repaired a couple of years ago. It was ground off, resealed, and it's still oozing black tar. So trying to fix that one once and for all. There was two actually worksheets for that one because the FAA wanted it separated out because they needed to go back and see if basically they needed to take it to Washington for check for approval because they'd already put some money into it. So that one is kind of doubled up. So there's two different, there's one that's tied into the reason it was being tied into the pavement project for the driveway and the parking lot is they would already be here and there hopefully wouldn't be any mobilization costs to repair that section and grind it out and do it, actually repave it. So that's what that one's all about.
Okay, so I'm gonna move to approve the project worksheet prepared by Jacobs Engineering for reconstruction. Caruso Drive, short-term parking lot rehab, 3,000 square feet of apron, and to authorize the airport manager to sign.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And the last one of these worksheets is, again, part of that whole obstruction issue. It's just another hurdle for planning and design work for the actual removal of the stuff, not to include the removal yet. So by golly, we can't put it all in one. We've got to have several. So that's what that one's all about.
I'm gonna move to approve the worksheet prepared by Jacobs Engineering for obstruction clearing, design and permitting only, and to authorize the airport manager to sign.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So what do you think, how long does it
All right,
take
so
to
the
find-
last one,
Just one sec. So how long do you think it'll take for us to find out whether that, the curb, or the apron, section, whether that'll get approved, do you think, from the feds?
I think we're not gonna see anything, I don't believe, until the spring.
All right.
So along all of this same line, we just found out the end of last week that Jason Homiak, that works for Jason Jacobs, has been, he's been our project manager, I think, since the start of Jacobs. That came online. He's leaving, so we're gonna have a new project manager. Hopefully he will pick up where Jason left off and be a big asset to us, but time will tell. Jason's last day is the 4th of November, so he's working on some paperwork for us to try to get it done before he leaves. It's going to be a learning curve, I think, for some more people, including myself. Yeah. So.
On the easement part of it, have we finalized that the easement where you guys were working with the one property owner with the, is that all signed?
That's all signed, sealed, recorded in deeds. Jason will be here on the 26th. We're going to meet with the property owner and point out the remainder of the trees that they haven't already cut to have them take care of it. So, yeah, we got through that hurdle. We pushed it through. Everybody seems to be happy with it, including the FAA folks, and everybody says no trees, no problem.
Sounds good.
So that's.
All right, that's our
So the
final.
last one cropped up after our, almost immediately. Yeah, our final one. Cropped up immediately after our meeting 2 weeks ago. There is Modern Aviation has signed a purchase and sale agreement with Columbia Air Services. There looks like there's a couple of Columbia folks online with us this morning if you want to hear some more about that. From what they're telling us, there won't be any changes to what's in place now. We're still working on the agreement for the fuel tank and making sure we got the appropriate wording in there for maintenance, the requirements for maintenance and avionics, and how they're going to meet that requirement. So right now, it's still early. I haven't seen any official paperwork showing that they want us to bring it to the commission for an approval of assignment of the leases or anything. So I think right now we're just kind of an informational purpose.
Is that the
I don't, at this point, I don't believe we need to take any action. I think it's just it's a little more.
ultimately, what action are we going to be required to take?
We're going to have to assign the lease and the operating rights to the new owners.
Okay.
And it'll be under another name. And if Nick Burlingham is on here now, if you want to let him explain just a little bit more about it. He's the counsel for Columbia.
Go right ahead.
Go ahead, Nick. Unmute, Nick.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you so much. Yes, so this transaction had been in the works for a number of months, and just by happenstance, it seemed to coalesce on the afternoon of Tuesday, October 4, after our last public meeting. So the nature of this, Leroy has it almost right, but it's essentially a stock transfer. So the owners of the Columbia group of companies that are included in this transaction are simply going to sell their shares of stock to the owners of Modern Aviation. So the lease that's currently in place is not going to be assigned. It's the tenant will still be Columbia Air Services -BHB LLC, so it's pretty simple from the perspective of what the county's involvement would be. But of course, Modern Aviation would like to make a presentation to the extent that the county commission would like to have them do that. And what we sort of agreed to do was, sort of put everything on hold. When I mean everything, I'm talking about the extension of the fuel farm build out and the lease amendment 6 until the county and the parties sort of got comfortable with this new development. And so today is really just informational. We did cross this bridge once before, back in 2019 and early 2020, when Columbia was considering a sale to another entity. We got pretty far down the path of agreeing, county and parties, that county consent wasn't actually required. But of course, Modern Aviation wants to make sure that they do everything the right way and everybody's comfortable. And so At some point, they're going to ask for an estoppel letter saying that the, rent's up to date and the various other things that come in those certificates. And we aim to address that, with the county's consent, through Leroy and through the county administrator and the county's attorney. And we did get together last Wednesday. And when I say we, the chief executive and business development folks at Modern and Leroy and Michael Crooker and John Hamer and the Modern folks had an opportunity to present their portfolio and their business strategy and their plans and their holdings and aspirations. And so where we left off on that was that the county folks were going to sort of talk amongst themselves. Following this meeting, we get together again to sort of discuss what the next steps would be, after the county had an opportunity to sort of digest it for a little bit. But Tom Dunn will continue to be the chief executive officer on site. And all of the employees that are there currently now are going to become Modern Aviation employees. Like I said, there's really not an assignment of the lease since it's a stock deal rather than an asset deal. But we're sort of looking forward to, whatever the commission would like in the context of a presentation on this for Modern, and also to working with John Hamer and Leroy and Michael Crooker to ensure that the county's comfort level is there, before we take our next step.
Great, we'll look forward to hearing what comes next. I mean, nothing required at this
There's
point.
no action needed today.
Yeah. But thank you.
Thank you very much, commissioners.
All right.
That's it for me.
All right, thank you, Leroy.
Thanks.
Sure.
Morning. I just have a couple things. The first one we have is approval transfer of funds, and it's all on here as in one. Would you like those broken up into two separate?
I'm gonna move to approve the transfer of forfeited assets in the state of Maine versus Veronica Gong in the amount of $760, and in the state of Maine versus Jeffrey Witham in the amount of $19,775.20 as presented.
Paul, I'm not sure, but I think we should handle these separately because the court is going to address them both separately. And we're going to need to give them consent separately, I think. So if you could just make a motion on GOM and then make a motion on Witham separately.
And could I give him the G account that those dollars should go into?
Sure.
No,
You want
I'm
that?
sorry.
You want
This,
that?
all we're doing here is telling the court that if you do forfeit this money,
They are,
then, this isn't the order.
yes. This is the transfer of the funds.
We don't have that. We don't have what you have.
These need to be signed by the chief.
Move to approve the transfer of forfeited assets. Yeah, so this is the transfer.
Not, the process here is before the court will order the transfer, they have to know that the county's willing to accept it.
I think
And what we're doing is accepting this in the event that it does get ordered. That way we don't end up with a super fine pit or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I think all this is us saying, wherefore, we, the board, approve the transfer. So we're telling them that if you do transfer it, we'll accept it.
Mhm.
This is not, you don't have an order yet from the court transferring that. So once that order, I suppose we could indicate today where this would go, when and if we get the order.
But it says here, approval of transfer on the order.
And
I mean, what's in my packet is
This is, I have put in for transfer of the funds. That first secretary.
right.
Right,
We
and
also-
this is the attorney for the Attorney General's office saying that, I'm telling the court that if you order this, this is going to be transferred to the sheriff's department because all forfeitures must go to the county.
Mhm.
And they're saying here that they're going to transfer these funds to the sheriff's department. They're going to transfer the funds to Hancock County because of the contribution the sheriff's department made. And
So, okay, so I'm just trying to formulate what I can separate them out.
I think all we have to do is accept the transfer of funds.
Okay, so what you'd like is move to approve the transfer of forfeited assets, state versus Veronica Gom in the amount of $760, period, or would you?
Right, no, that's it, because that's another example right there, because that is the total amount of the forfeiture from the court. But the county's not gonna get $760.
We get 80%.
We get 80% of that. So you see, that's the transfer of funds will come after the order is made, and then there's a distribution. So what we're doing is simply accepting those when and if that order is made.
Okay, so is my motion is proper?
Yeah, I think so. That's all we have to do.
So that's my
And
motion.
and for the,
The second one.
I'll second that motion.
wait a minute, and for the chair to sign, Paul.
And for the chair to sign the order.
Yes.
All right, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 So I'm gonna move to approve the transfer of forfeited assets in the state versus Jeffrey Witham. In the state versus Jeffrey Witham in the amount of $19,775.20. As presented, and for the chair to sign the order.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, gentlemen. Last thing I had, just to update you on cruises, that I got an email from Leo at Works, who had the bid, that he had a date, and those two of our Tahoes should be in this week. And you wanted to have some discussion on how to pay for those, if you want to.
Yes,
Wait.
Yeah, no, well, I think if we approve today those purchase, then you can get a check when and if you need that. You don't have to come back to us. Gentlemen, I'd like to suggest today that we authorize the finance office to cut a check in the amount of 2 cruises. And for the time being, we'll charge that to ARPA until we get the budget back and decide how we're going to deal with additional cruises in the near future and next year. The sheriff does have money in the budget reserve account that would cover that, but I think if we took it from ARPA right now and left that money, then we could decide what to do with that later. And if bad come to worse, we could always restitute the ARPA account if we wanted to, correct, Monica? If you charge this out to ARPA tomorrow, and 2 weeks down the road, we said, no, we don't want to take this out of ARPA, we could always restitute that from another account.
I don't know.
Well, I
I
would
believe we
say
had that discussion, didn't we?
we've had some discussion on where the funds, we haven't decided hard and fast how much, but we know at least 2 cruises are gonna
That's-
come
And that
out.
was gonna be my comment, is that it's really a safe deal because
So, I
Yeah.
don't think we have.
somewhere between 2 and 10, we're gonna buy some cars out of our ARPA, so.
Yeah, so I don't think we have to change this.
So I'd like to, the motion, Paul, should be to approve the purchase of 2 cruises from the ARPA account. Authorize a.
Do we know the amount?
I don't have that amount. I know the bid price was, when this originally was 41,400 and something. But I believe there's been a slight increase from GM, and I don't have that final figure. I'll get that when he tells me, when he gets them in.
So, I mean, just need to take action on something that we don't have in front of us. I'm not sure Michael would be that comfortable with that.
Well, the only problem, Paul, is that if we don't authorize the sheriff today, authorize Monica today to cut a check when those are ready, he's gonna have to wait till the next meeting for us to take official action on that. I'm just trying to avoid that because,
Sooner I get them, the happier I'll be.
yeah, it takes 2 months to get them set up. It's bad enough to have to wait 2 more weeks to get them, so.
So I guess you better make a motion, because I'm not sure what I'm doing.
Well, before I make the motion, I think my intent is that we approved a bid. We approved the bid amount. The sheriff is telling us that may be slightly higher, and if we can accept the fact that even though we don't know what that is, it's slightly more than what we did approve, it's probably acceptable. Based upon that, I move that we authorize the finance department to cut a check in the amount of whatever amount the sheriff needs for 2 cruisers from Quirk in Augusta.
I'll second the motion. Discussion.
So let me. This is in the budget, right? So this purchase is really approved. Right, through the budget process? It's just where we're paying for it is the only difference.
Correct.
I just am trying to figure.
Those bids were awarded, gosh, I couldn't tell you how long
Yeah.
ago. It was.
Yeah, we awarded those.
That's
bids.
correct. And we received 2 of them months ago. And the other ones are finally allegedly gonna hit the ground this week.
So I'm just trying to wrap my head around what we're doing, that's all. All we're doing is paying for it out of ARPA funds.
Yeah.
On something that we've already done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
What's going on?
Well, the IT department would like to swap offices with the UT department. If that's okay. Checked with Michael and he's inquired with Millard with the UT and he's okay with the change.
Well,
Just out.
Miller just said before you came in that it was totally unacceptable.
I'm off base.
So I'm gonna move to approve the relocation of the IT office to the current UT office, with the UT office being relocated to the current IT office as requested.
Now, I'm going to second the motion, but I'd like to just suggest, gentlemen, sometime after things quiet down the first of the year, we're going to be talking about some policy changes and some policy decisions. To me, I'd like us to consider future reassignment of office space under the auspices of the county administrator. We're asked today, without a lot of background that Mike would put into it if he was involved in it, and probably has already. And what I'm saying is that I don't think it's necessary to get to this level just to move offices around. I mean, if they want to move Patrice into where Rebecca was and you know what I mean? That,
So your point is that you don't think it should have to come to the commission?
correct.
Totally agree.
I'd like to see Mike have full authority
Yeah.
to make those
Me
decisions.
too.
Operate.
I think he should.
So we can approve that today. Mike, remind us when we're talking policy issues next year that bring that up again, and let's somehow discuss that again. Yeah. Just, we haven't voted, but we will.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
See the bad news.
It's not all bad. Most of it. So to give a little background, you remember a couple of years ago, prior to COVID, we were talking about the site, some of the issues. Miraculously during COVID, we had no issues up there. We had talked with Browns about a possible site management agreement. That's kind of fallen by the wayside. Rick had a medical event. They've got more work than they can handle, and that
they're really, at this point, not overly interested in adding to their workload. Most recently, they were up there working on the P25 radio upgrade, and were there at the site and noticed the generator was running and there was no power. What we found in talking with the current occupants of the windmill GE, the contract up there, is a lot of times they didn't tell us that they'd shut the power down for maintenance, and it was longer than they anticipated. In talking with that site manager up there, or lead technician, their general practice is they don't tell us because it's 8 hours or less and it hasn't had an impact in the past, and we haven't squawked because we haven't had any power. So that's kind of been their operating process, is just do what they got to do, and if we call them and say, hey, what's going on, they, oh, let's go look. So and also, while they were up there, they noticed the site was pretty overgrown with a lot of small trees in and around the generator and the tanks and all those other things. Dave and Dennis went up with the brush cutters and knocked a lot of that back. But in the process of that, we also, they put the power back on, but the transfer switch wasn't transfer, so we toned out a fire department for medical emergency. You know, unfortunately, they got the I'm responding text, but no radio message. They did a little more research, found that the backup batteries for the radio systems had been frozen at some point, or actually damaged beyond any kind of real reasonable use. They were still working, not well. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, you went up, they looked at the solar controller is inoperable. We've had some mouse habitation in some of the equipment up there. And the solar array was not really working properly. In the process with the solar charging and the generator up and down, the generator is now leaking oil at the base. So, you know, and if you remember, I'm not sure, Paul, if you've been around for these, but every time that we have an issue up there, we end up replacing the generator because they're small and cheap. And I think at this point, we really need to look at a more robust, an actual service generator, something that's designed to run for days and days and days. These backup generators I have now are really not suitable for, especially when they do maintenance or have to shut the tower down for weeks at a time. Again, a couple of years ago, they had a transmission assembly issue in the tower. They completely tagged the tower out, including our power, which we did. We did install a small solar power station that really isn't adequate at this point. And those batteries they've been cycling up and down for so long. I think those batteries are also pretty rough shape. So right now we don't have a solar option. That's been completely taken out of the equation because of the damages to the equipment and the control units.
So do we have the generator? Is that on the main, is the county responsible for maintaining that, or do we contract?
That's our equipment. That's the only, we have two sites. That's the only site that we own in entirety, that we own everything in entirety.
No, but I understand we own it, but I have backup generators and I don't ever touch them. We have a contract, somebody comes in and does everything and ensures that everything's right.
So we do have a generator that Maine goes in once a year and does service on the generators, but they're not
responsible.
They're not responsible when we have an issue. Maintenance has gone up. Anytime we've had an issue, they've done the PM on it, changing the oil, changing the filters, things like that.
How's the existing generator fueled?
That's probably, yeah. And when they
How
went
big's
up,
the tank?
it's one of the big ones. It's
1,000
1,000 gallon. Yeah. So I lost my train of thought there from that. But and then our electrician, and additionally, the site was actually primary was the solar and the generator, which has now been shifted over from primary to be on line power. We've researched a little bit. I've gone back out to US Cellular to ask for an update on possible monitoring equipment, like a hotspot of some sort, to put a couple cameras on. Oxford County does that with one of their remote sites. They have a Nest camera that basically is hooked into this basic hotspot that they're able to you know, if they suspect there's any issues, they can pop the camera real quick and just point it at the control panels. And they can see they either do or don't have power. So that we don't have anything like that. And we looked at it a while back, and again, COVID kind of hit and everybody kind of wasn't working anymore. So, you know, everybody was remote and those kind of things.
Well, like on my generators, there's a monitor, I mean, I can look on my phone and see the status of it is. There must be something like that available for.
Well, it would be through this web. There's no internet out there. I mean, it's just, it's
Oh,
basically, yeah.
I realize
Yeah.
that. There's no, it's a little cellular thing that goes.
Yeah, and that's something, again, I've sent back to US Cellular to give us, you know, what they sent a couple of years ago is probably, you know, if it's like a computer, there's probably all brand new stuff to be able to provide that type of.
No, but what I mean is integral in the generator is a cellular rig, 'cause it's got a little antenna on it, and that's part of my maintenance agreement for the generator. And if there's anything wrong, you know, the light is yellow or it sends me a message, I just call and they do it. I would think that that's what we would want as opposed to the county having to maintain it. I don't, that must be available on a bigger scale than I'm doing.
I'm sure.
Is that what you're talking about? Or, because it sounds to me like we're almost peaceful, we're just going back to where we are, just updating things.
Well, we did discuss the ability to have whatever generator is replaced to have notification. How we get that, I'm not
Yeah.
certain at this point. Yeah, I don't think we're looking at going another. And these, you know, for cost savings have been kind of homegrown. You know, our guys have taken care of installing it.
Yeah,
You know, to.
well, that's why we are where we are, sounds like.
Yeah, well, I'll hold my comments on the site. It's not a great site, but it works. And
We mean location wise?
not location wise, it's just
Infrastructure?
remoteness and all. I mean, you know, I think back when that site was put in, you know, we got what we asked for, because we just said, you know, a shack, that's hours of power. So that's why we have basically an extension cord out of one of the towers. It's not charged by the windmill, but it's, you know, it's not online, it's not uninterrupted line power. They basically went from, okay, here's my tower, here's your, you know, so we asked for a very basic request and they provided that. So, you know, looking, which, yeah, that's all hindsight. We're here today, but you know, Dennis has looked at some larger service generator options. You know, I'm trying to research companies that will do site maintenance. There's not very many around that seem to be that I can find so far.
You got a couple of those.
I'm not sure. You know, I've gone on Google and looked around. There's one out of Bangor, but it looks like it's a pretty big company. So I don't know if this is something that they would work on just for routine site maintenance in the future.
It's a guy that works exclusively on Generex. Have you seen him?
I have.
Caldwell.
I don't know what it does.
No, he's an individual all by himself and
I'm not
whatnot.
familiar.
That's another one.
Yeah, I mean, he's a one man and he does all the warranty work for Generex in the area.
Okay.
Well, I can tell you that it seems to me like as long as I've been around here since Bull Hills, we've been piecemealing that thing. And I'm not sure if we expect Dennis to do preventative maintenance up there, but when you're standing here telling us about mice problem and dead batteries because they froze. They didn't freeze last July, I tell you. They got,
Oh,
you
it was
know,
over the winter.
so,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking somehow we gotta get this site up and, you know, and I think maybe we need to go right back to square one and say, is there a better location that would provide a better site as far as transmission wise and infrastructure wise? And it's to me, the biggest ironic part of this whole thing is that here we are touting solar power, and then the most unreliable group that I've ever seen as far as trying to keep power to our station up there. So, you know,
I mean, wind power.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean wind power, not
Yeah.
solar, wind power, you know, because that's been the biggest problem. We just bought that generator, I say just, I mean, we bought that, what, 4 years ago? 3 years ago? Yeah, just just before COVID set in
Well,
about that. Now is that gone? You say it's leaking. I mean, that's a bad sign.
Oil is shooting out of the
Yeah,
shaft seal.
she sounds to me like she's going. And that was just, a Home Depot special. I mean.
Well, yeah, it's,
I'm not sure.
I mean, it's a ceramic use.
Next, John.
It was not a,
It's,
generator direct.
yeah, true value. I meant to say true value.
Well, that's okay
I
too.
mean, I know we talked about a different type of generator in the past, but it was pretty pricey for the actual power.
Well, you get what you pay for.
But I think, we need to revisit that.
Is any of this applicable to ARPA funds?
I would think
Yes.
so. I would think so. Yeah.
Well, geez, isn't this the time to do it right? Well, who do you need to help you put together, first of all, get the right equipment up there, get it running, and then come up with some kind of a PM program, so that we don't find ourselves faced with this once a year.
But you mentioned a couple things. First, is this the right site? If it is, what do we gotta do to make it, so that we're not doing this every 3 years?
I think the biggest challenge of the site has been power. Because like I said, we're at the mercy of whoever owns and maintains the entire site. And the way I understand it is now there's several entities up there that are not First Wind or GE, but they're all tied into this one main system. I mean, we talked to them a while back about the possibility of being powered by the main transmission lines that are going
Yeah,
through
because
there. And they had zero interest in doing that because of the requirements. I guess that's a very high voltage line going through there.
But living off the grid has become technologically capable and beneficial for years. Dwayne Jordan's got a house on Spec Pond that's entirely off the grid and uses solar, wind, and generator.
Yeah, but this isn't a house, this is.
Nevertheless, I mean, it's not like, is the technology not out there to do this right?
It
I
is,
think it is.
it is.
I think so.
So what you're asking here is to put 17 new batteries there.
That's one of the radio systems, so that we have that.
Yeah,
Yep.
and that's sort of separate from everything we've been
That's separate
talking
from
about.
everything else. That's, yes, and that's,
But I think we need to get a plan together, whether it's a
Oh.
larger generator
Sure.
or something, because our window of opportunity is now.
The batteries, are the batteries that's being charged by the solar panels?
No, those are still good.
These batteries are actually charged by the radios when they're in operation. It's designed for about 24 hours of use when all else.
It's a
power.
separate tray.
When you say by the.
So these radios I'm asking for are the ones that power the radios.
These are not the UPSs for the radio.
Correct, they're basically a battery bank for continued operation in radios. They're not designed as long-term use, but for those short periods of time.
Are they just like a UPS?
They're kind of like a UPS, but they design them for about 24 hours of operation once, if you lost everything else.
So while you have power, land power, whatnot, they charge the batteries?
Yeah, the radios charge the batteries, and then when you lose land power or any power.
So what does the solar panels power?
That's what the line of power is.
That's a separate bank of batteries.
That's in the-
And those batteries are still good
And why aren't they?
because the voltage controller's been destroyed.
that's by the rodents?
That's by,
By what?
mice.
Mice and stuff? So that's an immediate fix, right?
We haven't fixed it because we got the utility back. But
Oh, is there a reason we, in the new design, if we did a new design, we wouldn't have a transfer switch?
we will have a transfer switch, but this is, again, this is a controller only for the solar. The transfer switch is for the generator.
Yeah, that's a separate thing.
So this is right, we need to have CMD or Caldwell go up there, we have to be prepared to stand alone with electricity. And yet, of course, we can do it, but it's gonna be, you know, more than $2,500. It's gonna be 20,000, 25,000.
For the batteries and this transfer switch, this.
Yeah, for a new,
Generator transfer. switch.
right, for a system that's gonna be there and run indefinitely if we
And
need
I'm
it.
not opposed to taking money out of ARPA to do this, if I knew this wasn't just another piecemeal fix.
Oh, it's good.
So I'd like to see something, I'd like to see something
Let's
that's,
get this outfit to engineer something that we can rely on.
You know, problem too you're gonna have is to get
Yeah, I
one
agree.
of those generators, because I can tell you, ordering Generex at the Home Depot. It takes, it could take like 6 or 9 months for people to get generators right now. Like, I don't know if that's changed, but Generex is,
Well,
they're manufactured, it's
which,
the new.
what you're talking about is similar to a generator like they use at a sewer plant or a,
So not standby, but prime rated,
yeah,
so it can be a primary source of power.
yeah,
And on an indefinite basis, not a day or two.
yeah.
So right now, we've got 24 hours with his batteries. The solar's good for about a week with nothing. And then we're relying on the generator. So when it's a month, we went from August 50 hours on that generator to like 500 hours. That's something during this outage, and
And it sounds
it's
like,
just not gonna go for a week at a time.
and it also sounds like part of this is we need a plan for keeping
Eyes on.
crap from, eyes on it. Keep stuff from growing up and, you know,
well, I was gonna mention that too. Is this time to like have Dwayne go in with his excavator, the chomper on the end of the excavator and brush that way back?
No, we've had pretty good success with spare buffers. It was just always growing up,
Is that what it is?
you know, like yay high.
Yeah.
Not trees, the clearing is still clear.
How many years ago was it?
It just needs some maintenance.
I think it was on like, you mean like the last time we had the generator?
No, the last time we took the field trip and we was up to the tower.
Yeah, it's been 2 years because we did.
okay, so let's get back to batteries. I'm sorry to jump around. Where's that gonna be paid from? If we,
In the past, it was through the UT TIF money, but, I don't know if Miller's still on.
Budget or TIF,
If we can have it.
they've done it both ways.
well, you're asking for us to, spend this money. We just gotta, where are we gonna pick it, is my question.
And that's a good place to take it from that TIF money. TIF money, as you know, TIF money is restricted.
Yeah,
And if we can find a use for that, it's like this, I think that's money well spent, so.
so the proper word is UT TIF money? Or UT TIF accounts, or account?
TIF funds.
TIF funds, yeah. And that's where we have historically,
Well, the thing is, that her TIF monies are separated out by site, right? You have 3 TIF accounts,
I believe
yeah.
so.
So I mean, it should be the Bull Hill TIF account. Again, I'm still confused here. That switch, should that be replaced today?
The controller, solar controller,
Is that,
if you want the solar operate,
why don't we? I mean, no matter what happens in the future, are we gonna want?
we do, but we're looking for a direction in a larger, more guidance in a larger direction.
Yeah,
So we may want to wait on.
And I also need to confer with Miller and the commission for spending UT's money, which is why we waited for today's meeting.
Well,
Well-
TIF isn't UT money,
No, but,
but
you know, it's,
we,
this repair today would come out of his budget, I assume.
no, not if we take it out as a TIF, UT TIF money. It'd be the Bull Hill TIF account, which
Okay.
isn't UT
Well,
money.
these are questions that we wanted answered.
You know, Miller's up on that TIF, I mean, he's our authority on that.
so to answer the question that was just raised on the solar controller. From reading your memo and this discussion, I got that you're not looking for a decision on that you haven't made up a decision because you want to see what's in, it might be that you're not gonna use the solar, or it might be that you're gonna use solar plus.
It'd be, so it'd be a rare backup, yeah.
Yeah, so you're not asking to address that today. You're asking to address the batteries and,
And the generator.
and just to weigh out,
Even the generator today,
no, that's not.
well,
I-
Dennis just said that.
Well, yeah, but I think the memo talks about authorizing them to explore what our
The
options are.
exploration, not the replacement.
I think
Yeah.
you can tell from our conversation that we want a long-term solution, and that
I
if
think
we
we're all
use
in
our
agreement.
monies to make that happen, we'll make it happen, so every 3 years, we don't have to figure this out again.
Right.
So you have to
Right.
start working with whoever
Exactly right.
engineers and.
So I think today, for the purpose of today, though, I think a motion to approve the purchase of batteries from the Bull Hill Tiffany.
Yes.
Okay, so,
Yes.
so I've got a motion here that's, 4 or 5 paragraphs, so.
I don't think it-
How about this? And correct me as I'm going, so, I'm gonna move to approve the purchase of 17 backup batteries for the Bull Hill site from Brown's Communication for the sum of $6,896, paid out of Bull Hill TIF funds, and to authorize the RCC Director and Maintenance to explore a remote internet access for a camera monitoring system for the Bull Hill site and to obtain a quote for a larger service generator and to report findings of such efforts to the commission at an upcoming meeting at a future meeting. Is that,
That's fine, and I'll second that motion. I don't think you need to limit yourself to those issues, because
well,
I think
that's why I was,
I think there's more issues up there that you need. I'd like to see you come back and say, we've studied this thing from A to Z. These are the recommendations from, and
A set it and forget it solution.
well, and, you know, the monitoring might not be internet, it might be whatever, so, you know, I'm trying to make my language not constrain you, but, you know, I think Bill said it correctly. We want a solution, but just like you do.
Yeah, this is definitely.
But maybe it could come from Blue Hill TIF money. but- I did say Bull Hill.
Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Yeah.
Dennis, maybe like get yourself on like a little bit of everybody on a routine maintenance kind of thing up there, just to, like for the vision of like going up there during the growing months, 6 months of the year, like every 2 months to like 3 months to like make sure it's cleared out, right? So
Yeah, we
just to like,
we were, at one time, we're doing.
Yeah.
And then
yeah, life happens.
various forces intervened and we stopped doing that.
Yeah.
Well, the idea was, we're gonna get a management company to do this.
Yeah.
And just never did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no doubt. And I think we all agree, as Millen said earlier, time to fish or cut bait with this issue.
All right, so our next. Tell us about your capital expense.
Yes, gentlemen, we've got a new block heater in the tractor, which is awesome, but we were looking at a solution to plug it in and ran into a little problem. It's we have no available power, usable, user grade power coming out of our switchgear room by the generator. And so it was required installation of another power panel out there to just put a simple receptacle on, just oversight design or whatever, but, and this will also include a couple of drops in the future. Chuck has mentioned that in that jail electrical room, he'd like to have some power, a couple more circuits for equipment that he'd like to have installed. And so this would provide us with a sub panel for current needs, a receptacle to plug in the 20 amp receptacle for the tractor, and also maybe room to run a little bit of power to the jail shed, which doesn't have a light, which has been kind of a problem a few times in early mornings and evenings that we've been in that shed, and also provide the drops that Chuck might need in the electrical room as well. And my budget for this is $2,500 for a 12-station sub panel to be installed in the jail receiving area or in the shed itself, and performed by our electrician, Ron Bishop.
Okay, so we don't need to approve the work.
Well,
What do you need from us?
I'd like to, since my budget is depleted and we had to need this, I'd like to pay for it out of the capital reserve account,
You have an account there,
out of my G account.
so you're asking for approval to transfer of funds.
Right.
Again, Monica, I really like to see, I personally would like to see the transfer request completed and ready for us to sign at the time we approve. You're
Well,
gonna-
that'd be my oversight.
Yeah, okay, but, and, you know, if everybody worked with the finance department on transfer, what's gonna happen is a month from now, you're gonna hand us, a transfer request, and we're gonna say, when did we approve this?
Yeah, we
Can
both
this
talked
wait till the
about
next
this, as a
meeting?
matter of fact.
What's that?
Can this
Oh,
wait
I
for
don't
the
think, I
next
don't think it's
meeting?
necessary, I'm just saying that,
Well, it just would allow
I'll
It
bring
to be
the, I'll bring
a
the,
nice, neat package. I mean, unless there's a fire somewhere, but I don't see it. You're not saying.
well,
there's a
you're not
fire.
gonna need to plug that tractor in 2 weeks, so that's.
no,
that's
I'll
right.
bring this to you with the request in hand.
Yeah.
In
Transfer.
November.
And
Sure.
Michael, when you see these requests for capital money and whatnot, encourage those department heads to work with Monica and have those ready for us.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, because
That's the way we used to do it.
yeah. Good, see you in 2 weeks on that.
Yeah, awesome, no trouble.
All right. I just did when we stood up.
A rainy day, you don't get nap time.
I know, we should.
Michael, we have your proposal for this position. And generally speaking, gentlemen, I can't say I'm disappointed, but I really liked in the past having a designated county administrator and a designated assistant county administrator. And of course, with Rebecca, that worked great with her human resource background, that she was our human resource officer, but it also clearly designated a second in command in the event the county administrator was absent or unavailable or whatever. And
So if I can give a little bit of background first, I mean, the rationale behind it is basically when I went back and looked at all the job descriptions and all that, the job description you have for deputy county administrator really didn't refer to anything to do with the deputy county administrator. So if that's truly, if you want the two position to be essentially it, then it really ought to be reflected that way so that we incorporate those elements of it. And at the end of the day, it's not my position to tell you, obviously, you're gonna tell me what you'd like to have there, but the reality is that I do believe we do need to have somebody like before that has that experience. And that's what I didn't want to miss out on, is having a bunch of candidates that have administrative experience, but they really haven't handled day-to-day operational human resources. Now, if we could get what we had, great, that would be a great scenario. My concern is that we're gonna go out to advertise and then maybe have to settle a little bit because we'll have somebody that maybe has the administrative qualifications and experience, obviously, but not necessarily be that person that's what they do. Whereas you could then go ahead and maybe designate somebody else, not saying do away with the position unless it's decided you want to do that, but basically have a designated individual, but maybe have that an add-on to a part of another job description. I don't have a problem moving forward if you want to do it the way you did, but I do recommend then that that I come back to you with a modified job description that encompasses both positions
and still have the emphasis ultimately be on, again, human resources, because I do see a lot of value in having somebody that can do that day-to-day operational stuff, work with the representatives of all our providers, and develop those bonds and dialogues, and then just be able to also, I mean, right now, we've been handled before I got there, I've been handling now as well, but having a designated person obviously has a lot of value to have somebody that people can regularly develop relationships with and work.
You know, but prior to the county administrator days and whatnot, they used to hire a county clerk. And they were looking for clerical expertise. And once they hired that person, they said, okay, now we're gonna give you a whole bunch of county administrative duties, type duties. And so what you had is somebody very proficient in clerical work, but they weren't an administrator. And we had some terrible, it was a terrible position for this individual to be in, because we hired somebody with their clerical skills, and then we said, okay, we want you to be an administrator, for which they had no expertise in. And I'm concerned that we hire somebody has strong human resource experience and expertise, but they don't have any administrator. And yet we want to try to work them into assistant county administrator, because we'd like to see that back up to you. And these people really, first of all, they didn't take the job of the administrator. Second of all, they really don't have the administrative capabilities. And I'm concerned that we could get that. Of course, the flip side is that we hire somebody with, as you said, with a strong county administrator, with administrative abilities that don't have the human resources, which I can tell you we need to keep and desperately keep, because we haven't had that. We hadn't had that level of expertise in Hancock County ever until Rebecca came along. And we'll be lucky if we could find somebody that could come in and take over to her, to that level that she had, but.
So what I would suggest then, if that's the consensus of really where you want to go, I can come back to you with a modified job description, because I do believe the job description should accurately reflect what it is that you're really asking them to do. I mean, there was nothing else in that deputy county administrator position that was any different than the human resource component. I mean, it's just, basically that's what it was, and there should be some additional stuff, and that's through no fault of your own. I know how they got to that point and just kind of morphed it over, and the person was kind of looked at as being one anyway, because she had the ability to do all that, had the experience, and could do both. So it just kind of morphed from what it was into adding that title onto it.
And that's what did happen too, Mike, is that we hired, yeah, and at some point, she became the assistant. I mean,
And so I don't know if, I mean, to me, like, we're not really saying there's much of a difference between these. I mean, this is how it's done before. At least that's how I understand it. I mean, that Rebecca started on the HR side, and we're saying that morphed over. And that's kind of, to a certain degree, that we're gonna say that we're open to that possibly happening here, but we wanna make sure we get HR in first. I don't know, so Paul would.
My feeling is this. We have a very Michael has been here a very short period of time. We went through a process, we hired an administrator. He's our administrator. I'm personally looking to him to help develop the positions he feels he needs. I don't think he's not come to us and said, I need a deputy administrator. And I don't think that even if he did, we would believe him, because he hasn't been here long enough to know that. But what he does know is that he needs some HR help. And he's not the only person we've heard that from. And we heard that from our prior, we had Rebecca, but when Rebecca left, we heard that. So I'm for, moving forward with this job description as Michael has outlined, and see what happens. To me, this is nothing. The urgent need is in HR. Let's hire an HR person and see where it goes. A lot of counties operate, and a lot of municipalities operate with a manager or an administrator and don't have a deputy. And they're a lot more complicated than we are in a lot of instances. So I say, let's just move forward with this. Let's, let Michael develop the office that he feels he needs. he may come to us and say, you know what, folks, you don't need a deputy. Or he may come back and say the opposite. And, you know, they may not necessarily be the same people. In fact, there is, what I didn't like about having a deputy is that, you know, staff might be confused about where to go with different things. So I'm for, this proposal came forward from our administrator. Obviously, he's put some thought into it. I don't know any better. You know, I say we move forward with this. There's nothing that says that we need to take any more action today than what's in front of us. So I'm gonna move to approve the proposed human resource manager job description as presented and authorize the county administrator to advertise the human resource manager position in accordance with Hancock County's policies and procedures.
Second the motion.
Discussion. So we haven't talked yet about the money part of it, not really.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, I think the budget was like 73,000 or so was in there. You obviously wouldn't necessarily start out paying at that rate anyway, probably. But we would have to, so, you know, I'm figuring for a position like this, it's probably closer to the $60,000 range. And then again, now the other part of this, which may, you know, help alleviate some concerns, when we put this up there, we may get a very good candidate that has that background, that has also demonstrated that they have the ability. And knowing that that's ultimately a priority for the commissioners helps me to be able to evaluate that when we're looking at the position and who applies, and ultimately who we might possibly recommend to be hired. So there's always a possibility that, you know, you could find that person anyway. And at some point we come back and say, yeah, we'd like to do this. And but right now it's hard because obviously we don't know what the market is. Just like anybody else, there's been a lot of people going everywhere.
Yeah.
And a lot of pay scales have had to be bumped a little bit. So perfect world, we get a great candidate and they possess the other abilities, which would make it a logical transition like it was, if that's the route the commission wants to go. But I mean, I'll do it either way.
I think keeping the dollar amount open, kind of like saying whatever, starting salary, 60,000 commensurate upon experience, or however you want to word it, so that if you get the candidates that just those perfect those requirements that you're really excited about, and we offer more, then that's fine to get the person that we think that has more attributes that'll help us out. So I'm not sure how you guys think about putting the wage in there now. I just think we need to leave the flexibility within the wage scale so that we can get somebody that's good, but I don't think we want to.
Again, I feel like Michael needs to, you know, he's only been here a month, I agree with you. You know, he needs to, he hasn't figured it out, we haven't figured it out, and I think this is gonna help him figure it out. I'm not talking badly,
No,
I think you know what I mean.
No, I understand. I
Yeah.
understand. I'm pretty thick-skinned, so.
Well, I didn't mean it that way, but
I know, I'm just kidding.
yeah.
I understand what you're saying, and kind of, it's helpful because now I've got kind of a greater sense of exactly what you seemingly would like to see as well.
Well, and you know, the fact of the matter is that the idea of administrator in Hancock County is not that old. In fact, most of your experience, Bill's the most experienced one here. And, you know, it worked. They're used to not having an administrator, as is a lot of the staff. So that's why I think it's a developing thing.
But
I'm gonna rely on you.
I don't know. I mean, last time I applied for a job, anyways, I'm just curious, as you have somebody out there who might be interested in moving to a new, you know, a new job and whatnot with the right qualifications. And if 60,000 is the figure, how do we get them to apply if they really like to have 70 and they're well qualified? So I'm just curious if we shouldn't have a range.
I mean, I would advertise it with a range, especially, and then obviously we're not locking ourselves in. I mean, and if we get a candidate we prefer, but we can't settle on a price, then we can't settle on a price. But at least it would allow us that flexibility to maybe attract that person with
So
additional.
can we go 60 to 73 as a range? We paid Rebecca 73, is that what you said?
Yeah, well, she was less than that, I think, because the 73 is what's proposed in the budget, I think.
Yeah, so probably 7, that's right.
Yes.
I think she had recently received a pay increase just prior to, so I don't know what the number is for this year. I
But
haven't-
you said we budgeted in 22, 73?
You'd have to look at them.
Would you say, Joan?
Yeah, you have to meet one.
60 to 70 range?
Yeah.
Well, John thinks 60
I
to
think
70
it's-
anyways,
I think
Mike.
it's 73 for 2023.
It's 2023
Like
is what I thought,
7%.
yeah.
We're close enough.
Oh, we've opposed 73 for
Because
23.
that was added in with the 7%, so that's what would be coming up in January. Now, obviously, we didn't have that until January 1st, but presumably it's gonna take a little bit to advertise, get somebody in, then obviously whether or not they've got to get, how much notice they've got to give, I guess, so.
So if we had 72 with a 7% increase, 23, that's gonna be close to 75. So we make the range 60 to 70 right now as far as the ad.
You're comfortable with that? All right. Any other comments on the job description in general, other than what's already been stated?
So we just gotta vote on it.
All right. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We get to work on it.
Great. That's okay.
So
That's okay with you, right? That's okay, actually. All right. Anything else, gentlemen?
Budget meeting tomorrow night.
What are we going to do? Wait to our next regular commissioners meeting to discuss their recommendations back to us? Is that what you want to do?
Yes. we have to do, right?
Well, I mean, unless
We don't know. We're not
unless
done.
we call it a special meeting, that's my point.
Yeah.
Do we want to divide? Huh?
Yeah, the next.
Do you think there's any reason to devote a special day just to budget? We can.
So,
Well, our next regular meetings are regular, just the regular ones, so.
And then remember that second meeting in November is when I'm not here.
Well, we don't have to finalize the budget until December 15th, and so I think we have until the first meeting in December to finalize our budget, so. Obviously, it ought to be discussed next
Yeah.
meeting, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll decide where to go from there.
The only other component that you gotta keep in mind, I don't have my sheet right in front of me, is the informational session that you have to hold as well, but I presumably assume you can compact those into.
Is there a 30-day notice on Mike? Do you remember?
The public hearing notice was stricter than the notice for the informational, so I'd have to go back and look, but I don't believe that.
But
was-
that could be done at a regular meeting, though. We
We've
have
never held a special meeting for that, I don't think. I think we kind of,
for the budget.
yeah,
Lumped it in.
like we do a,
We haven't since you've been in, no. They used to have a lot of special
Well,
meetings.
we had okay, so we get the recommendation after tomorrow night's meeting. And
Maybe. I can imagine they're gonna need to go another night, but
no, and then, so we get that recommendation, and then at the first meeting, we have a discussion about so we could take action there, but that's straightforward. Last year, we didn't, we went to another meeting, is that correct?
well, the informational meeting is before or after we act on the recommendations, Mike.
So I understood it was on the kind of proposed budget that you're gonna ultimately adopt or take action on. So I would assume there is a step in between there where
Yeah.
you would. would at least
Deliberate.
discuss it. It doesn't mean,
Deliberate on
yeah,
that,
it doesn't mean you're gonna do anything.
Well, I gotta believe that could be a lengthy discussion.
Yeah.
I don't see yet the BAC taking any action that's reduced that to, the increase.
No, in fact, well, so far what's coming back from the BAC is, you know, higher than what we proposed.
Right, so,
But, you know, I mean, do you know where it sits now?
I believe it's still around the 14 plus.
Yeah.
of course, if they pull that deal they did last year, motion that, that were recommendations, we decrease it by 5% or something like that.
So yeah, we'll get I think we can have some discussion of it at the next meeting, though. I would think we could start.
Well, here's why I'm
Yeah.
hesitating. I'm wondering if we need a meeting sooner than later. Just, okay, so next 19th. I wonder if we, you know, or that week would be tough. Then that's the first already. And then November.
How long does it take you to get those figures together back in that book?
Well, I've already updated your books for the.
Two meetings.
Up through, yeah, for the two
It's
meetings,
just a matter of updating on the,
what's happening tomorrow night,
and that's just the sheriff's department and a couple other departments.
basically, yep,
So by the end of the week.
all the law enforcement. Yeah, so hopefully by the end of the week or by Monday, I'd have. Things keep popping up.
But even if we don't have it, I mean, we know what they've done, so.
But I almost feel,
Yeah,
I feel
it's in your
more,
books for now.
I'd feel a lot more comfortable if I cannot be here for that meeting on the 15th.
Okay.
So
15th of November.
November, it seems like we need a meeting. Another meeting in November. And then all these issues go away, because well, they don't go away, but it gives us time to get that. I mean, we need some time. I think we're gonna need one meeting in between taking action and initially discussing it at our next meeting. Do you
Well,
agree with that, Bill?
I don't think we're gonna know until we start discussing it at the next meeting. I mean, we know that John has made a proposal or has an idea of what he'd like to do in the 23 budget with regards to, with some of the departments and expenses, so that'll be a discussion, obviously.
You mean the third party stuff?
That third party and some other, right? So, I mean,
Well, is that on that's for this, for 23?
well, it affects 23, yes, because it's kind of like a two-step process. We'll handle some of it one way in 23, and then we'll go to a permanent way of handling it in 24. But anyways, that's the discussion we're going to need. But beyond that, we'll have to wait and see what they do tomorrow night with regards to taking dramatic steps in reducing the increase. And then we'll have to go from there. So when you say another meeting, we might need another meeting, but it may be only to bless what we have done previously, as opposed to needing hours to work on it. So I don't know. I think we just need to put it on the agenda for next meeting, work on it and see where we go.
Yeah, having a meeting before our next meeting is really not gonna do anything. Nobody will be ready at that point.
Yeah.
Right?
I think we can wait until
Yeah,
the first November meeting.
Yeah,
see what
I do
we get
too.
done
yeah,
in
and then,
that
you know,
meeting. And if we have to hold a extra meeting in November, we can.
we could do it I mean, I know it's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, but if we had to, we could do that. Are people gone, it's Wednesday that's. I just don't want to get in a pucker one way. What are your thoughts, Michael?
But part of the difficulty too is that I don't want to see us rush real quick too and miss some stuff, you know. I
Yeah.
have to feel like we're doing, because it's either whether it's at the beginning or the end of the process, obviously it's the same net result. Mistakes can happen, things can get missed, but I really think that would give us a little bit more time to obviously get most of the LD1 calculation done now too. Not that that's a big deal, but I mean, again, that and looking at the valuation stuff, we may have more information if you take it up on first, and then if you're open to another meeting in November, then that's, you know, if you need it, then we take it.
Yeah.
We should be learning from our mistakes too, because we should have had another meeting prior to the BAC meeting. We were like one meeting behind in the process, and anyways,
Yeah.
Michael's right. I don't think we want to rush this, and we need to be sure, but I still don't know what it's going to take until we meet next time on the initial discussion, and then we'll.
No, in my mind, I just think we're gonna need a second meeting in November.
I would think if Michael has a chance, if we have a chance to put the numbers together, that he could then recommend what you might need for an extra meeting, either before the next.
Well, I mean, some of it obviously depends on what the final action they take tomorrow too,
Right.
to the extent of
Right.
where their recommendation is gonna be in regards to where you're gonna be at, so.
So last year, what they did, like they said, they went through the whole budget and they said, yeah, well, we agree with you, but this needs to be cut by 5%, right? Isn't that basically what they did?
Where are we at with the audit? Is that,
So I reached out to them, it was the end of last week or middle of last week anyway, and they are finishing up. They acknowledge they're behind. They've had some staff issues as well. We're hopeful. I mean, we explained to them, or I emphasized, and I know Monica's did before too, we emphasized to them that we really hope to have something by the end of this month so that you could have those figures to look at before you made final budgetary decisions. So that's kind of where I left it with them is please hurry up. I understand you got constraints, but we'd like to get those numbers back for you to look at.
They're not comfortable giving your ball back on undesignated.
I mean, we probably could get those figures from you if you're willing to make decisions off of that, I guess, and not the actual final audit. But
Well, if they were conservative with their number, and we knew that, and we were conservative with that number when we selected, you know, an amount to transfer, then we should be fairly safe, I would think, but.
well, I mean, I can go back to the auditor and
Give them till the end of, even till, I mean, the end of the month, Mike.
yeah, I'll talk to them and then also maybe have something that we could give to you, especially if we've got an week. So it's the first time you're gonna talk about it's at the November 1st meeting, then we should have enough time to hopefully put something in and get back into your labs before that meeting to have time for you to take it in, absorb, and really look at where you're at, I guess.
And Monica, is it way too early for you to start projecting undesignated for the 22 budget? You tell where we are and how's it looking and who's gonna fare out well, and deed, for example, is their revenue way over their projection?
I think we can try to start looking. Today I can't, obviously today I can't say, but
Yeah.
we can start looking at it.
And there'll be some coordination with department heads and stuff too, to make sure that there aren't any additional expenses coming through that have been held off until the very end. Which, Monica, you may know that better than me, not, you know, being here longer, but we want to confirm that with them too, so.
great, anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.